Got the valve covers off. It's a little rusty. Yeah, there's water inside there where I pressure washed it. I wasn't worried too much about that because we're disassembling anyway. So this side, way more a lot of rust. So we got a lot of cleaning up to do. Hey, Bruiser. All right, so we have an adapter plate that we have to get off next. and then this adapter plate will slide straight up. It's open at the bottom. This is just an adapter plate to let that housing we just took off mount to the engine, and then the transmission to that housing. But this has got to come off before we can get to those 11/16 bolts. And I can see now why we need a 17-inch long wrench, but we may can, do the 2 wrenches together trick, get some leverage on them. But we got to get this adapter plate off first. We got one bolt that's behind the ring gear on our torque converter, and can't get the adapter plate off without getting that bolt out because it's blocked by the ring gear. The ring gear is on the torque converter, and we can't get the torque converter out till we get the adapter plate out. Yeah, the whole catch-22 thing. But anyway, let me do a little research on that. I thought there might be a place around the edge of this where you can get it out, but it doesn't appear to be any special allowance for that. So I'm gonna do a little research. There's got to be a easy solution, or else we'll make an easy solution, and that would be just to whack that off. Well, I have the shop manual from 1955 for this car, and I have the transmission manual from those years on this Power Flight transmission. And the procedure that they list for removing this torque converter once you get that housing off is to go straight to those 8 bolts down there with your 11/16 wrench or your C811 tool. They make no mention of getting this adapter plate off, and doing a Google search online, there is nothing about the bolt that is hiding right there. So we are going to do our best to. You can unscrew it so far, and then that's it. It stops. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sneak a blade in here, and we're going to just relieve the vehicle of that bolt. Always wear your safety glasses, kids. My blade's not big enough. How close are we? Yeah, we got him on the run there. Oh yeah. Yeah, there is a locator pin apparently past that bolt right there. So I need to get the head of this bolt off. Stupid thing is in the way. See if I can't maneuver him out of there. Yeah, I think that's gonna come out pretty good. There's an inspection plate I got to get off of this adapter plate. Then it should come right on out. Now with that out, I should be able to, it's not going to be so bad. I can see the bolts. Not going to be able to get the boxed in on there, but let's see. This. You can probably get a box in on there. You're going to have to shave it off. But it's not 11/16. Good thing I didn't purchase that tool because those ain't 11/16. They're sort of like a 5/8, but 5/8 is just a touch big. Well, I found a really old oddball 19/32 wrench. Let's just see. No, that don't fit either. It's gonna have to be the 5/8. So I got a 5/8 wrench here. It's an old one. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flatten this out because I can't get, you know, in that tight space. I need it flat. So I'm gonna heat this up. I'm gonna beat it flat. Then I'm gonna see if this will fit in there between the nut and the engine block, because it's kind of tight. So I may have to grind some of this off, but let's get it flat first. And if I got enough of this sticking out, I can use another wrench for leverage. Otherwise, I may have to weld on, cut this open end off, weld something on as an extension, but let's get it flat first. Well, that's flatter. I got that one broke loose. Let's see if we can't break these others loose. Yeah, you're gonna have to use a hammer and you're gonna have to tap the wrench. Now, if I had a second person here, you know, taking these things off, I could have put them on the front, the crank pulley on the front, on that nut with a nice long breaker bar. They could have held it while I took these while I loosened these, it would have been way a lot easier, and I wouldn't have to use the hammer. I could have used the 2-wrench trick. Now tightening these back up, I can still do that, but then as I'm tightening it up, I'd have to put that wrench in the loosening position, and so I'm not sure that that's going to work. But anyway, drop this oil pan before I move it into the shop, because I know for a fact that this thing is full of grit and grime. I had trouble draining the oil out because it was drain hole just about plugged up with stuff. Got all the bolts out. Start prying gently. Ooh, there we go. Yeah, the sump down in the oil pan appears to be at least an inch, maybe about 1.5 inches thick of crud. So even the oil pickup right here, completely clogged. Look at that. There wasn't any oil being picked up at all. I was wondering when we took the valve covers off why it didn't look more oily up there. I guess we see now why. So now what I need to do is this is the bracket from my engine stand, and what I need to do is get it attached to this in 4 different places. Should be able to snag maybe a couple of these down below. Right, I think we have a plan, maybe, I don't know. I'll try to use maybe this hole, and let's go ahead and come back up out of there, go over here, maybe this hole. So if you're kind of a do-it-yourselfer like I am, and you're about to put your engine on your engine stand, don't try to lower the engine to your stand to get it bolted in. Take this bracket off your engine stand, get it bolted to the engine. It's much easier this way. You can move it wherever you need to or whatever. Once you get it bolted real good to the engine, it's easier just to slide this into your engine stand. Drop the pin in. The bolts I'm using, I had some bolts that I used with this engine stand. They were too big. The bolts I'm using, I got out of my harmonic balancer puller kit. If you have the kit, it's got several different size bolts in there, depending on what engine you have. I robbed the bolts from it. It had a set in there that matched these threads and were long enough. So that's great. All right, so now we come down to decision making time. If you saw just now, as I showed you inside the cylinder walls from underneath, you can tell from up top too, but not as well from underneath. You can still see in some of the cylinders, some of the original cross hatching that was, I can still see it just barely up here, but anyway. If these cylinders are too worn, and then we're going to have to take it to the machine shop and let them bore it oversize, probably 30 over or something like that. You can bore up to 60 over, but not more than that on most engines. Anyway, I'm going to measure these bores. Now, the spec manual I've got, they give you a minimum range and a maximum range as far as the original bore size. And then they give you, you can go over that 0.06 inches maximum. So the maximum that these cylinder bores can be, and us not have to take it to the machine shop, is 3.687. All right, so the way this works is you've got these gauges here. I don't even know what they're called. I think there's a name on this. They're bore gauges, and so you got a little screw at the bottom here that loosens and it lets the sides pop out. So compress the slides or the sides, tighten the screw, and it's locked in. What we want to do is we want to measure, and it's hard to, I don't have the high dollar tool. This is the cheap version. But what you do is you use your digital caliper. Make sure it's set to 0, and it needs to be set to inches, and where maximum allowed is 3.687. And let me lay this over here. So what I want to do is I want to measure in a couple of different places. First, we want to measure crossways, and we want to measure longitudinal ways. We want to do it at the top and the bottom. Now, these are cylinders 2 and 4, and if I'm not mistaken, these were 2 of the ones that had 120 psi. So I want to do these 2 cylinders, and then if we're within that maximum allowed, I think I'm still going to keep it here, and we're going to try to do it here. The level of nastiness in this engine is unreal. If we do it here, we're going to have to build us a hot tank. There's no amount of brake clean and wire brushing that's going to touch this. We're going to have to build us a hot tank, which means a pot of rolling boiling water out there that we can lower this block into and get all this junk off of it, because it's completely nasty. Anyway, all right, so let's go cylinder 2 at the top, crossways. Okay, we're going to tighten the little screw. Now to get it out, tilt it. It comes right out. Okay, now comes the next step. Take your caliper, start opening it up. Well, first it needs to be zeroed. Zero that. 3.687 is what we want. Now, we want to very gingerly $3.6265 3.626. Guess what, man? We are within that range. Awesome. All right, I lied. We are within the range, but I lied about what I told you to begin with. The cylinder bore, to be able to stay within standard, that standard piston, standard rings, is 3.62475 up to 3.62725. Now the .060 is you can bore these at 60 over is what it's called. That's the maximum you can bore it over 60 over. So, but still, we got 3.626 that is still within our standard range. It's just over halfway of what our standard range is. So that measurement came out good. Okay, so we want to stay. Let me change my note here. Our maximum is 3.62725 or 3.627. So cylinder number 2 is now at its lowest. We're going to, we got to measure longitudinal ways now though at the top. Make sure we get. Now the reason we measure both ways, top and bottom, is because these moved, didn't it? Try it again. These cylinders can be they can egg shape, they can taper, you know, depending on the wear. You know, it can wear in a way to where you're smaller at the bottom than at the top, or from crossways you could be longer than longitudinal. We just want to check it. 3.624. 3.624. Well, I'm going with that. Let's go down to the bottom of the cylinder. 3.623. 3.623. Here's another thing too. If it was, you know, slightly worn to where we're starting to get outside that maximum range, now you can order, sometimes you can order, especially on these old engines, you can order a .001 oversized set, and that a lot of times will make up for the wear so that you don't have to have it rebored. You can just strictly go ahead with a .001 oversize. I think they have a .02 and maybe a .03. If that doesn't work, then you have to start with the boring the 30 and the 40 or the 30 and the 60 over. So, all right, let's try cylinder 4. It was the next one that was 120 because they were side by side each other. 3.623. 3.625. We'll call it 3.627, which is just inside of our range. 3.623. 3.622. I'm gonna say we keep it here. As nasty and it is as it is, and as much trouble as it's gonna be. I think we should keep it here. The machining on the block and the heads is $2,200. Now we may end up having to take the heads anyway. We haven't checked them yet. But the block seems to be within that standard range. And I think honing will get us where we need to be. And you know, actually, the low compression could be the piston rings, after sitting for a while, they will get stuck in their position. And as grimy as this engine is, I would have no doubt believing that those rings are stuck where they're at. And you know, the rings, they kind of float in there. You know, they're in the piston ring and the piston groove. And as the cylinder moves up and down, those rings do rotate. You know, that cross hatching has a reason for it. Anyway, those rings do rotate. They don't stay in the same spot. They will rotate. Those rings could be stuck. That could be the reason for our low compression. I do not know. But our cylinders, are still within standard spec. So I say we just do like an overhaul. We're going to boil this thing out, get it clean. We do new rings, we do new bearings. This timing chain is pretty floppy, so we definitely have to replace that. The camshaft, I don't know until we take it out. As much grime as obviously is floating around in this engine here. The camshaft may be something we have to drop back and punt on, because those lobes are prematurely worn, and you can see, I don't know if you can see, I can see there's trash on the camshaft, so there's a good chance we may be purchasing a camshaft. I think my goal now is to continue with the teardown, and you already see the lifters or tappets. We call them lifters now because they are hydraulic, and you already see them sliding out, which is actually a really good sign. Usually those things will get gummed up and stuck in there. These are just already sliding out, so that's actually a good sign. And yeah, so we will continue with the disassembly. Now, something to note. When you're disassembling this thing, the piston and rod that came from cylinder 8 has got to go back in cylinder 8. This one's got to go back there. That one's got to go back there. You can't swap. I mean, you can if you want to. You could put this one over in cylinder 1. It's not a good idea. This cylinder's been in here for 70 years making its home, and we want it to remain in its home. Even though we're putting new rings and stuff, we want that piston to stay in that cylinder. It's very important that we do that. All right, now that I have my microphone on, so we got to remove the camshaft now that we've got the sprocket off. I got to take these bolts out right here. Look like they're 1/2 inch. Put these in a bag. Okay, camshaft's ready to come out. I probably shouldn't have done that before I was ready, but we can go ahead and take it out now. And we can look at it to see, are we even going to be able to reuse it? When taking the camshaft out, even though we're going to be putting new cam bearings, you want to be as careful as you can, because we don't want to cause any more damage than we have to. Now when we go to put this back in with the new cam bearings, we're going to be extremely careful, because these lobes are, they can be really sharp on the edges. All right, so there's our camshaft. Once I find some measurements, we'll measure what we can and determine. So far, I'm leaning towards new camshaft and new lifters, but we'll put this over here and we'll inspect it later. Once we get everything cleaned up, we'll start doing some measuring. So you kind of have to think upside down. This is the rear of the engine, and this is the front of the engine. So this is going to be 1357. So the piston, you can look down in the bore. Come here, take a look. So the connecting rod that's from piston 1 is this one. This rod goes to the other side. So that one's 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, if you'll notice, so I don't mean to insult your intelligence, because I don't know what you know. I'm just showing you stuff. You can see the skirt of the piston coming down out of the bore right there, out of the cylinder. This is the connecting rod. This is the rod cap. So each cap, on the bottom of each cap, there's a nice flat area right here. This is what we're going to use to label them. And I'm going to take a punch. And, you know, this is Andy's brilliance at work. For cylinder 1, on the end of that cap, I'm going to take a punch and I'm going to put, you guessed it, 1 little peck in it. Dimple, whatever. So forth and down the line. So when I get to cylinder 8, I'm going to have to put 8 picks in that right there. We don't want to, and I have seen people take a little Dremel tool and they'll just grind 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They'll just kind of hit it with the grind. Well, it's removing material. No matter how small amount of material, still removing material. So we don't want to remove any material. We don't want to change the balance of anything, because as you can guess, this thing rotating it, you know, every how many RPM, every little bit counts. So I'm gonna take my punch, we're gonna label these. That way I can go in and take them out. We can put them in the hot tank, and Andy don't have to worry about getting them mixed up, because we will have marked them. So this will be 1. Okay, got a little dimple in there. You don't have to really clean these off. I just wiping the oil off so I can see what I'm doing. This will be 2. This one's 3. This one's 4. And that's about the way it goes. Now, this one I have 8. And I don't foresee having the caps separated from the rods anytime other than when we're installing them back into the engine or when we're about to take them out right now. But they'll only be separated one at a time. They won't all be separated together, you see what I'm saying? Since these are already up in my face here, I'm just gonna start with back here at number 8. I'm curious to see what these bearings look like. With as much gunk as is in the engine, very curious to see if the bearings are good or if they're about wore out. Those rod caps, not going to be easy to just pop off, so what you can do, leave your nuts on, start tapping. That'll get them loose, because what you're doing is you're driving the rod away from the cap. Make it a whole lot easier, and you're not damaging a thing. Now, if you didn't have the nuts on there, you could be damaging the threads, and that would be bad. But make sure you put your nuts on. Now, let's take a look. Well, let me show you this. I'm gonna wipe it off with a paper towel. See if you can, make sure you can see this. Dude, that ain't bad at all, man. Like, not bad at all. And the crank. Oh, it's nice, nice. At least on this one journal here, I mean, it looks great. I'm very excited about that. Now, what do we do now? We want to get the you want to get the rest of the piston out. Be careful when you're sliding the rod past your surface of this journal here, because you don't want to scratch it, and the threads on these on this rod will scratch that. So just be careful. See if we can't use. You want it to be wood. That way the wood is not going to scratch the metal surface. So I'm going to put the handle of this hatchet down there on the bottom of that piston, kind of on the side of the wrist pin a little bit. We're not going to beat the devil out of it. We're going to see if it'll come on out, but if it don't, we'll have to get a ridge reamer, which I do not have. I'll try to borrow or rent one. Oh yeah, she came on out. Show you the. So we've got these two up top. Sorry, these two up top, I believe, are the compression rings. Now this one down below, that's your oiler, and it's an old style. I don't think they make them like that anymore. Anyway, as far as the movement of this wrist pin, of course it moves this way. I know that. You want to check and see if it moves the other way, and it shouldn't, and it doesn't. So that's awesome. You want to have a little side to side, just a little bit. That's cool. Top of the piston. Not a whole lot of carbon up there, man. I mean, it was definitely burning oil, but not a lot on top of the piston. So we, what I thought, and it may still be in some of those cylinders, these rings get stuck, you know, in in the compressed state as they're in the cylinder, they get stuck and they can't float. And there's certain places in the cylinder where oil will get by those rings if the rings aren't floating. So sometimes that's the cause. You'll get blow by, you'll get smoking, burning oil, you'll get very low compression. This one seems to be okay, other than the fact that it's really grimy. Very nasty engine. But anywho, well, we looked up and got one out. What do you say we keep going? All right, we got all the pistons and rods out. The crank looks very, very good. The little line in the middle, of course, you got one rod bearing that rides there and the other rod bearing that rides there. You could probably polish that out with a 1500 grit sandpaper with a couple of swipes, but I'm not concerned at all about that. See if I can get a the surface is it's in extremely good shape. If I just, want to get really good, I can take some, maybe some 1500 grit, and I can polish that to a mirror finish. And I don't know yet. But, so, got all that. Now we need to take the crankshaft out. Now, this is your front main cap. I'm sorry, that's not correct. This is your rear main cap. There's where the oil pump was. This is where the infamous rear oil seal is. You got your other caps, and this is your front. It's your front cap. We'll take these caps off, and then the crankshaft will lift right up. Being extremely careful not to let anything hit, scratch, or gouge those journals. Other than that, there's just a couple other things we need to do to prep the block to go into the hot tank, which we haven't built yet. I've always known these to be called, well, on this particular block, they're Welch plugs. But this, because the way they're shaped. The ones that look more concave, people have always called them freeze plugs. The idea being that if your coolant in the block freezes, instead of cracking the block, it'll push that plug out. Well, that's not going to happen. It's a good idea, but if you've got water freezing in your block, it's not only going to freeze there and push that out. It's going to crack that, it's going to crack. These weren't designed to be a fail-safe for a freezing block. These were to help in the casting process of the block. They had to have holes to help them with that. And so to seal up the holes, you have these plugs. These are Welch plugs, and they're basically flat with just they're just concave slightly. And so you turn the concave towards the inside, and you can lay that Welch plug in there, and it fits kind of loose. Until, if I can get down here to where you can see it, the light hit it just right. See this little indented in the middle? So put you something dull, like the end of a 3/8 extension or something, and give it a good whack to push that concavity down. That pushes out on the edges, and it seals the block up, seals the hole. All of these are Welch plugs. So we'll have to get those out. And the way you get a Welch plug out is you keep hitting it a few more times and the outside edges will start to curl up and come away from the edge of the edge at the block, and it'll come loose again, and you just pluck it right out. Whereas the freeze plugs that we think of that are like a dish, like a dog dish type, that you hammer down in there and they're a friction fit. Those you have to hit on the edge, it'll spin around and you pluck it out. I haven't seen any of those on this block. They've all been Welch plugs, which is the old style way of doing it. But I like that better. It's easier. So we'll have to get those out. Plus, our cam bearings are still in here. And we will be removing these cam bearings. So we will be removing these cam bearings. Just trying to give you a shot down the... So the cam goes in there. And here, and there, and there, and there. There's cam bearings in there. Just like the bearings we took off of the, you know, they're thin metal. So, have to have a tool to drive them out. Use the same tool to drive them in. And I don't have that tool yet. It should be here in a matter of a couple of days. So we'll get those cam bearings out. Get our crankshaft out. And my propane burner that I'm going to use for our redneck hot tank, it should be here in the next couple days as well. So it's probably going to be next week, middle of next week, before we can get everything set up. Hopefully by then I'll be ready. We'll hot dip. We'll hot tank pretty much everything. The thing you have to worry about with the hot tank is it's going to be in the boiling water with the degreaser. Hopefully all that'll come off and the block will come clean, and it'll be raw cast iron. Well, raw cast iron, just in the humidity in the air, it will flash rust. So, especially like the crank, when we pull it out, we'll have to spray it down real quick with WD-40, because we definitely don't want it to start rusting. The block, the cylinders are the main concern there, but we're going to hone the cylinders out anyway. So we'll just pay attention to it, not let it get, you know, out of hand. And then we have some small parts. We've got some sheet metal. We've got that torque converter housing. Let's see. The intake, water pump housing, and last but not least, the heads. We're going to have to disassemble those, get the valves out, and the valve springs. We'll put all that stuff, all the little small parts. We'll have to find a basket of some kind. Probably a fish cooker basket, you know, with holes in it, that we can put all the little stuff in. We don't want to leave it installed. We got to get them out of there so all the nooks and crannies and passages and valve guides gets all clean and everything. So that'll go. I'm going to replace the camshaft and the lifters because a couple of those lobes aren't as sharp as the others. When I say sharp, I mean they don't come up to that nice defined point. They're a little dull on the compared to the other lobes. Plus the lifters, almost all of them have a little wear on the bottom. A couple of them are very worn on the bottom, and that can totally affect how well your engine runs. So you buy the camshaft and the lifters, you know, it's kind of like a set. They don't necessarily come in a set. Sometimes they do. On this particular engine, I'm having such trouble finding parts. I have found the camshaft and I have found the lifters. Lifters are $12 a piece. The camshaft's $150. So there's 16 lifters times $12 plus 150 for the camshaft. So you can see that you know, the price tag starts going up when you're working on like old cars, want to restore them, or even just get them back running again. Everything, just prepare yourself that everything is going to need attention. So, having said all of that, and we've got the engine now to where we're pretty much ready. It's, you know, it wouldn't take me but about 15 or 20 minutes to get the crankshaft out and knock those Welch plugs out. And if you're doing this, remember there's plugs on the back of the block as well. There's some pipe plugs. You want to get all of that stuff out. It seemed like I saw a Welch plug in there somewhere, but anyway, get all the plugs out, get all the bearings out. You want as clean of an engine as we can get. And then we've got a lot of parts we're going to need to probably spot blast out there with the little sandblaster, like that crank pulley. We can't put that back on a nice clean engine, which we'll paint. Not sure what color yet. I'll have to research on what color these engines were back in the day. So we'll sandblast that. The intake we'll probably hit with the sandblast. Water pump housing we'll sandblast. The exhaust manifolds we will probably sandblast. The starter we will not. So we're going to clean it up. We're going to try to make it look best we can. It's not going to be show quality, but you know, we want to take pride in the work we do. So the torque converter housing, it looks like it used to be just silver colored, or mill finish, I guess you call it. So I don't know. The valve covers are in good shape, and they've got the sticker on them that says Red Ram, which this wasn't the well, they call it the Super Red Ram, but this was just a Red Ram. It wasn't a Hemi. This was the non-Hemi version. So I'd like to clean those up, and if I can find the decals that say Red Ram, because these don't look all that great. I would really enjoy putting the correct decals on it. So yeah, so it's red and Ram, and it's kind of italicized. Capital letters, kind of italicized. The decals I found so far, it's not italicized. It's not like these. Similar, but the script isn't italicized. So still looking. Like I say, it's not going to be show quality, but and if I just can't find the correct ones, we'll clean these up and paint them anyway, because you know, if we don't, it's going to look really odd on our nice new engine. That'll be clean. I still can't get over the level of sludge and nastiness that's inside this engine. I just don't understand. Anyway, I'm gonna leave that. I'm gonna leave it there on this one. I don't want to just bore you guys to death. So when you see me next, we should be getting things on a chain, getting ready to lower it into the redneck hot tank, get our basket, get our parts. We should be cleaning some stuff. There's a lot of parts to order. Having trouble finding some things, but we're still looking. So y'all have a good day. If you haven't subscribed, please do. If you enjoy what you're seeing, let me know. If you see things I did wrong, you don't have to let me know that, but just don't do those. Above everything else, y'all remember, be kind to one another. See y'all next time.